Welcome everyone. As you're coming in here, go ahead and just let us know if you can hear me. Happy St. Patty's Day to everyone. Also happy March Madness. I hope your brackets remain unbusted for at least a couple hours. So if you want to let us know who you are and where you're coming from, and yeah, we'll get going here. Give everyone just a couple minutes. Welcome Ashley, Ben, Charlie, Darren, David, other David, Eduardo, Eldon, Kimberly, Paul. Good to see you, Paul. Charlie, a good friend from Blackbod. Welcome. All right, well, let's kick it off. We've got some really great stuff to cover and only an hour in which to cover it. So I want to welcome you guys to the Scaling Pre-Sales webinar series this month here in March. We've got Accelerating Adoption of Digital Pre-Sales Tools with Sheila Rue from Infor. I, of course, am your host, Garrett Erickson. Recently title change. I forgot to update on the slide, but I'm now the Product Marketing Manager here at Consensus. And yeah, I've been hosting these for a while and excited to have you here. One quick note by way of housekeeping, you may have seen on LinkedIn or somewhere else, but Demo Fest is coming back. It's going to be our third annual showcase of the All Pre-Sales Virtual Conference. You can see we're going to have live sessions. We're going to have some top industry thought leaders. A few sessions have been posted already to our agenda to give you a little teaser of what's coming. And there's going to be so much more to come. Actually, last year we had some of our friends at Infor present, and maybe one of them can come back, or if not, then we'll have them. We'll definitely look forward to seeing them there, and you'll get some best practices. But as we get into this, I'll post a link to Demo Fest in the chat here, so you guys can register for that and take a look as we get through the presentation. But without further ado, to not rob Sheila of her time, I want to introduce Sheila Rue. She is a good friend of ours here at Consensus and a great power user and a dynamic leader over at Infor. She's a Senior Director of Solutions Consulting for the Americas region and has done some great stuff as far as transforming her org and the way that they view pre-sales tools. Really great voice here in pre-sales. So with that, Sheila, go ahead and take it away. I'll stop my share.
Thanks so much, Garrett. It's great to be here, and I'm excited to share some content with the community. So in a moment, you should see my slide deck share. Hopefully you guys are seeing this. Can I get a little confirmation that it says Infor and Consensus on the screen? Yes,
we see it.
You do, or you do not?
Yep, we do.
Excellent. All right, gang. Well, thanks again for having me join you today. The topic, the hot topic, is accelerating adoption. And who I am and what I'm into is I am definitely a big digital advocate. I am that person within our organization that really gets people fired up and recognizing the importance and the potential impact of this platform. So I am excited that it is St. Patrick's Day. I am based in Seattle. I hang out with my 2 rescue dogs. I also have 3 cats. I'm that person, all the animals, all the rescue animals. And I'm excited to report that upon culmination of this day, I will be heading to sunnier climes. I can't resist sharing that. So I'm going to be heading out for a little vacation coming up here quick. So I'm in a very elevated mood. So quite a day here. Happy St. Pat's. Let's start rocking. So what I thought I'd do, just recognizing the fact that the audience may be comprised with folks that are in varying states of implementation. So some folks out there might be either in exploratory mode or just getting started, where you've made the very good decision of investing in this platform. Some of you may be just, starting to ramp up or getting your minds around what some solid approaches might be for your organization. Some of you might be like us. We're kind of We've been on the platform for about a year, and I'll kind of take you through a little bit of our journey there in terms of what that year might look like. And sure, you can put that start button at any point in time, considering sort of looking at the calendar, flipping it back a year, and then thinking through where we are. And then I thought it would be also kind of interesting to start planting some seeds around what the future looks like. And all of us, as we're kind of paying attention to this increasing adoption over time, I think all of us have unique landscapes, technical landscapes. All of us have different employee mixes, people accessing the platform in a little different manner. So the intention of this exercise is really to really share thoughts about Infor's experience and some of the tips and tricks that we have identified that certainly did help improve our adoption and really elevate some of the engagement. So this is kind of the structure that I'm planning to walk through. And each of these three sections, the then, the now, and the future vision, what's next, each one of them is going to end with a few hot tips. So at the end of the session, you'll have a sense of what our experience has been, what some of the lessons learned that we took away from our journey, and just to get some thought leadership generated around what the future could look like. So this is one of those things that I'm sure everyone has seen it more than once. It's that image that it's two things at once. It is an old woman and a young woman. And some people see one right out of the gate, others see another one right out of the gate. Hilariously, when we first started looking at this, there was a collection of us, and the initial response from a couple of the team members were like, oh, this isn't one. It's so obviously, and then they both said the opposite thing. This is so obviously a young woman. This is so obviously an old woman. And so what that did was it really evoked a thought and a reminder that as we're moving through these journeys, the philosophy will change, our perspective will change. Every minute is an old minute, and every future minute is a new minute. So it was just an opportunity to acknowledge that regardless of where you are in your journey, stay flexible, because you may find a new avenue to explore. So I mentioned that I wanted to give you a little bit of an understanding of Infor's experience. So looking back on the rearview mirror and getting us familiar with where we are today, the way we got here was first the project team who initiated this project out of the Presales organization in Europe. They started to look at how can we scale our solution consulting organization. So here at Infor, the synonymous terminology, pre-sales, solution consulting, that's what we're doing here. And as an organization who really takes pause and makes sure that our investments are both well justified, and then we want to make sure that we are good stewards of that investment. So we put a lot of work in upfront as an organization to step through a framework that clearly articulates the value of the investment, what the expected results should be in order to really have a thoughtful, mindful, really exciting investment. So Mark and Tara, who is another one of our leaders here at Infor, perhaps a familiar name to some folks, they put a lot of time and energy into developing this decision-making framework that justified the investment. So that was approved. Then it was time to start to consider, okay, well, great, we've got this big empty platform. What should we do now? So the next order of business was to start generating content. So we identified some key areas and started piloting in sort of a smaller fashion. Hey, let's get some content into the library. The thinking there is upon purchase, and that next order of business, which would be to launch, we need to have something of value in the library for the teams to access. Now, some of you guys out there, when we talk about accelerating adoption, it may depend on the lens that you're looking through. So some folks that I've spoken with who are consensus customers at varying stages of their seasoned implementation, some folks have no problem getting the sales community up to speed and engaged and totally adopted. But the solution consulting or the content creators are more difficult to get on board. In our case, it's the opposite. So this is our current experience, which is, hey, we had a bunch of solution consulting community members who were tagged to start to develop content. And the reason we started with a smaller group was just to learn what works. And when you think about content, anyone who has been in pre-sales or solution consulting for any amount of time, you typically have content in a few places. You've probably got some in Vimeo or YouTube or on your desktop in an MP4 format. And so we're recognizing that we had kind of three roads to travel on in order to create content. So road one, that's your existing content. It's the stuff that's already sitting out there. And some of it might just need some little fine tuning or editing to get it a little more current, but it's content and it can live in the library with some light touches. The second road, so we had three roads for content creation. So the existing content, the second road was really, we're out there doing business every day. We're doing demos, we're doing webinars, and the opportunity to take a look at some of the longer demos or some of the more robust demos and considering turning those into chapters. And then again, populating the demo library with some compelling content. The third road for content creation is new content. And that's the heaviest lift because you need to really get creative. We had some amazing templates and coaching, collaborative coaching. The methodology that we used was to take advantage of our internal tools. So we're a Microsoft Office shop. And so we used Microsoft Teams, we have a planner board. And as the progression of the new content, so I'm being very specific to new content creation, as content is scripted and then the software is configured and then someone does the recording and then it goes through brand review. So we have this very methodical approach, again, leveraging Microsoft Teams. For the new content creation, I mentioned that's a heavier lift because that inevitable challenge of multiple and conflicting priorities. So we're asking our solution consultants who have primary responsibility to drive revenue generation and do customer-facing activities and dig into the requirements, configure the solutions, and get out there and show our stuff. We're realizing that, hey, what we are asking for another capability to exist within our solution consulting community. So we started with small groups. The strategy around planned approach to develop the content was identified. We got the content published. So by the time we got to the launch, which for us was July of last year. So it was the end of July 26th, I remember it well. Our strategy there was to deliver that published content out to our sales community. And the approach that we took, so this is an interesting item, is that we decided to do kind of a big bang approach for our field sellers only. So it was for North America and EMEA. We had identified that was going to be our target audience. And so we partnered with our enablement team and we had a huge launch. There were, I don't recall how many people, I think there were 200, 300 people in attendance. And then we did a series of follow-up sessions. So after the big launch to the North American and EMEA field sales, on a weekly basis, we followed that session up with a series of, I believe there were five or six successive sessions, say that 3 times fast, where we dug into each of these areas that you see highlighted in the lower portion. So when we initially created exposure and awareness to the platform, we were helping the sales teams understand that, hey, this is your opportunity now. Your next steps are going to be to get into the demo library. We want you to access the content and then figure out which demos are going to be compelling for you so you can create a demo board. And then personalize and send, and then analyze and act. So each of those follow-on sessions really dug in deeply to just one of those key areas. And we invited the participants to have a really informal opportunity to just ask questions and get clarity on the best use of the platform. One item that may be on a mind or two out there, which is, when we made that investment, how many licenses did we get? What are we talking about here when I'm saying there were hundreds of people on these calls? The investment that Infor made was for 800 licenses. 600 of those were for our sellers or senders, and 200 are for our authors or content creators. So that just gives you a little bit of lay of the land from where we started, which is really the then, way back when, and then getting that approval to actually procure the platform, then coming up with a strategy to ensure that we had a rich content library available so that when we went ahead and launched in July, folks had nice content to review, access, and go ahead and personalize and send. So that was our journey, and some of the key learnings that we got, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We could have a great time digging into this more deeply at any point in time if we run across each other out there. But some of the hot tips or hot takeaways here: it's really important to have very clear expectations set out in advance for the different constituent groups that you're going to be engaging with. So I mentioned that our 2 primary groups in the then times are solution consulting, or our author community, and then the field sellers in our sender community. So one area of opportunity was really getting clarity on, what do we expect you to do with this? And really helping the leaders of those teams recognize and appreciate the potential of the impact. So when you use it correctly, you can accelerate your sales cycle by 10%. And we did some internal research to understand, what is our typical sales cycle? And at that point in time, it was 241 days. So we're asking the teams, like, what would you do with almost an extra month in your sales cycle? So it's creating the expectation around the good and the what's in it for me, but also helping them recognize that other teams out there in our competitive space, other software organizations that have also invested in Consensus as a platform, their selling teams are sending, then have those stats. For inside sales, it's 70 to 100. For field sellers, depending on your opportunity mix and your book of business, maybe it's 25 or 30 a month. So it's really creating those key performance metrics and then helping people understand where they are from a performance standpoint in association with that metric that we're having people aim for. And everyone's going to have a unique experience. You have your own communities, you have your own targets, and so on. The idea is really to consider anecdotally, what can we really expect? and then really think through how we can present those actuals to the teams so that we can start to derive insights. Things like, anecdotally, we find that people click these links after business hours. So in real life, if anecdotally, we might find that that's a 33-35% click rate. What if in real life over here, we're actually finding that people are clicking those links after hours more like 60% of the time? You are selling while you're sleeping. That is a great quote that I stole from one of our counterparts out there. And it is very effective, selling while you're sleeping. So that creation of expectations is something that we are continuing to work toward, and something that I see as an area of opportunity that we may have missed the mark a bit on that one. That next item there, less is more. We had so much stuff in our demo library that it's almost overwhelming for the reps to be able to navigate it and really have clarity, understanding exactly what they should grab and go. So a lot of opportunities there on our side around naming conventions, around really coming up with a mindful approach in how the content is being presented to our communities that are accessing the content. So we're always thinking of our customer or our clients. And in this case, the client from my perspective was our sending or seller community. So we really wanted to make sure they had a positive experience, and hindsight being 2020, I think we have some room to improve there in terms of, okay, we got all this great content, but we may not have organized it in the optimal manner. So make it really easy for your people. The other hot tip, and this is probably something that, that looking back is simply an opportunity to really adjust and assess and do all the right things. So we did not have our inside sales or the early sellers, our BDRs, which are our business development representatives. They're all early stage teams, and this is a profound opportunity to leverage digital in a way that gives those BDRs and inside sales teams a deliverable. They can actually meet the request of a client that's frequently asking for a demo, flip them a link, get something into a template, use public links, and start to really drive business, do A/B testing. A lot of opportunity there. So that's something that we are going to be doing as we move forward. But that was something that we did not do in the first pass, but now we are going to take an enhanced approach. So I kind of took us through our journey, like how did we get here? We invested, and then we created content, and then we launched to our sellers in North America and EMEA, only field sellers. And we learned a few things from that. So fast forward to the now, and we are in this phase where we are in an assessment mode. Okay, so what's working, what's not? We have gotten a lot of traction from other constituent groups internally, as well as our partner network. So Infor did not purchase licenses for our partners. And I will tell you, that is probably, when we look at the inbox and we're monitoring the traffic for people that are requesting access to the platform, the hottest topic right now, or the largest number of requests, seems to be coming from our partner community. So we do have a partner enablement team, and we are just starting to explore different ways that we can provide content to our partners in an elevated manner. So that's more to come on that. It is very much in flight at this moment, where we're really recognizing the value and potential, again, of leveraging digital in a multitude of ways. And that is certainly a community that is both interested, and I think we, again, would want to have very clear expectations. So as folks are starting to get on board the platform, what are we expecting them to do with their access? Are we expecting them to go look at their Demolytics? Are we expecting them to have a certain number of sends on some degree of frequency? So a couple of things that we're exploring there. And then this whole concept of adjusting. We're always trying to do better. So we're creating feedback forms, helping people share their insights with us to say either there's content missing that I need, and they're able to formalize that request, or my experience with the platform isn't as optimal as it could be. Here are some ideas of how we could improve it. So we're constantly inviting that input from our communities. And we keep shifting our perspectives. So in this case, it's a little bit different from the earlier illusion that I shared. In this case, it's the same image, it's simply flipped. And what you're seeing is there's a lion, and then on the other side, there's a mouse, and it's just a flipped image. The reason I selected this one is because I swear my approach, my philosophy, my strategies can flip as I get more insight, as you get new information again, and you may shift your strategy. And one of those areas would be that consideration for inside sales, just to keep it really specific here. I kind of love these weird brain image things. These can be great limbics. So that's another reason why I wanted to put them in this deck for you guys. So these could be food for thought for future presentations in your guys' worlds. And I'm trying to go to the, okay. So when I mentioned that, hey, we're invested, we've got the library, now we're doing an assessment, we're kind of in this assessment phase. I wanted to give you guys a sense of sort of what things look like over here. So we've got about 381 demos in our library, and a lot of videos were reviewed. So we did this, you see that 987 number. We did what we called a level 0 quality check. So we looked at the published library, the content that's published in our library, didn't export, and we had a subjective team, not content creators, no one that deals with consensus. It was intentionally a different group of folks, and we asked them to look at every single video for the entire duration. And I'm emphasizing that because folks that are on the platform and familiar, that a standard or an advanced demo, that's actually a compilation of a whole bunch of MP4s. And the reason we asked the teams to go through every demo is because from an audio perspective, there are times when you do not, the audio will overtake the speaker's voice, but it doesn't happen until 3 or 4 minutes in. And so just listening to the beginning portion isn't going to tell us or give us the answers to that particular test item, which was, is the sound quality good? Do we have music? Is the music carried throughout the video? So we noticed that there were a few different approaches that the teams were taking. We do have some best practices in terms of branding guidelines that we wanted to make sure were being incorporated. So the idea of having this level 0 assessment gave us the chance to have an objective or subjective perspective about the quality of the content. I'm emphasizing level 0 because we're already maturing that strategy. So I am a leader of the early talent community. That's just something for your GWhiz files. But what we're seeing is this chance to really connect digital with early talent, meaning when we have a new cohort, we're going to have them do a full quality assessment of our demo inventory once again. It's not going to be a level 0, it's going to be more like a level 1. And the benefit there is that our early talent team members are going to have a chance to really understand what our messaging is. They're going to have an understanding of our full portfolio of what lives in the library. And they're also going to understand what good looks like. So when we start asking them to create digital content, they'll have a really good framework to operate from that's informed with actual examples of, high priority or high value content. So this is just a little snapshot of where we're at. And so when you look on the right side up in that upper right hand quadrant where it says 212 authors and 445 senders, I mentioned that we have 800 licenses that we had divided into 200 authors, 600 senders. What we are finding is that we think these licenses are extremely valuable. And one of my charters is to ensure that I am a good steward of this investment. And so what we've made it very clear for our communities is that this is use it or lose it. So one of those mindset shifts, you think of the lion and the mouse, flipping it on its head. Originally, when I took ownership of this, I was so almost over invested. Like, I want everyone on here. How do you not see the value? It's just crazy to me. But I've started to really relax that mindset and be more inviting and less demanding and more inviting, because what we are seeing is that the data really does start to tell a story. So those sales teams that use this platform properly, and what I mean by that is sales leaders say digitally deflect. They say you do not get a solution consulting request unless you send a demo board and you've seen some engagement there. So we do have some leaders, sales leaders in our organization that are exhibiting that behavior that we're looking for. And so we're figuring out who those folks are, and we're creating evangelists out of them and really showcasing what that looks like. And it's, as sales start to close, then we will have more and more success stories to really close the loop or connect the dots on that entire sales experience when you're leveraging digital as part of our DNA. Like, we should use this all the time. We should use it often. We should use it for all kinds of things. Notable at the very bottom down there, that particular engagement, I think, broke some Guinness World Book of Consensus records. I remember checking with our consensus team as we started to see the number of views and the view time and all this stuff. It is an outlier. It's skewing all of our stats, but it is a really interesting illustration of the true value of this platform, being able to dig into that engagement and really use that data-driven insight, because you can see which chapters are really compelling to the communities and which are less compelling, and we change our strategies. So one thing that we have done, just because of the way we have structured our license distribution and so on, not everybody got licenses. And so we created a Power BI report to allow team members to at least look at preview links and then be able to drill into specific industry or capability areas and get a sense of what the demo flavors are, and then being able to really advocate to get a license and then really ensure that they were going to be shepherding that license in a positive way. So just a simple illustration of another access using preview links, because we wanted to make sure that people did recognize that we had content out there. This was a great lesson learned, not a lesson learned. It was actually just something that Infor did, and it really helped with our acceleration of adoption. And that was, as we started to assess our technical landscape of sales tools, our global sales enablement team hired these awesome digital sales coaches. Their job and charter is to go around to the various sales teams in the industries that they support, and their role was to help those sales communities navigate our array of sales tools. So Consensus is one of our sales tools. We also have a bunch of content that is managed on a content management platform. So things like brochures, collateral, the ability to create a dedicated, it's called a shared space in our vernacular, a dedicated location where a client can go to see all of the conversations they've been having, their meetings, their discussions, their demos. So that's our Consensus area, the collateral, and so on. Because it's not just naturally intuitive for everyone, we partnered with our digital sales coaches and we did a series of enablement sessions for the different industries that each coach represents. And what we found by doing that was that it generated yet another connection within the enterprise. So having familiar voices, having people that speak the language of the audience. In other words, having sales speak to sales in sales language, and having solution consulting speak to solution consulting in our language. It oftentimes it carries some weight there. So having those digital sales coaches has really helped us with the adoption. And that kind of takes us full circle back to where we are again, which is the continued investment in leveling up our content. So we kind of think of things as content creation, content curation, and then content distribution and analysis. Each one of these areas has a lot in it, so that the creation component, where it's the design and build, and really leveling up the expectation from our teams around being inclusive. So a lesson learned, whether I formalized it in one of these slides or not, one of the lessons learned was that we created content from a solution consulting mindset. So that's my heritage. I've been a solution consulting professional for a really, really long time. Here at Infor, 16 plus years. And so we have this mindset that I know what you need because you ask for it all the time. So we're going to populate the library with what we know that you need. Well, darn it, as it turns out, they might need something a little different than what we had anticipated. So what we're shifting toward now is having, again, a more inclusive content strategy plan, whereby our industry principals that know the trends are partnering with our digital content teams so that we can, in essence, start to develop a digital bill of material that supports our 2022 go-to-market plays, our campaigns. That's really something that we didn't do and now we are doing, and it needs more attention as we continue forward. And even getting into an approval item. So as the content development teams are creating content, I feel like we need to have the sales voice weigh in and say, yep, that's good content. Not only is it good, we will definitely be using it. So incorporating a bit of an approval component to that content strategy plan is something that we have started to really start to formalize. I think the rest of this is, well, whether it's self-evident or not, it is something that all of this is almost worthy of its own talk track. So when it gets to publish and we really want to understand from a feature standpoint, what is working out there? So we have all these best practices. I mentioned we did a full assessment of the quality of our inventory. And when we did that assessment, we didn't we overlaid the engagement because I think that's a real fundamental piece of it. But I'm almost shifting my mindset once again to really amplify the fact that the engagement is really that's where the rubber hits the road. We could have content creators that follow our best practice guidance to a T, but if it's not delivered using a nice intro video or a compelling email, then it may not be landing as expected. So we really want to dig into the engagement and start to come up with a rubric that almost the content in the library starts perfect. And then you can have however many points. And then if your content is applicable for a multitude of stakeholder communities, in other words, yep, it's going to work for sales, but wait, it's also going to work for partner onboarding, or the same digital artifact could be used for new hire onboarding to articulate our value messaging. So starting to really think through how we value these digital artifacts is something that we're putting a spotlight on. And then that content distribution and analysis, in talking with our most rockin' reps, the ones that use the platform, they use it as part of their DNA, they use it with frequency. It's not just one demo board, it's the appropriate demo boards for the appropriate point in time. What they're telling me is that they're using them, but they're not digging into the demolytics. They get the notification that somebody watched their video. That's their indication to go reach out to that person, but they're not really spending that time in the demolytics. So that feels like a real area of opportunity for us. So when it comes to those hot tips, kind of back to the less is more area, it's like we really needed to refine the way our users were experiencing their access to the content. So we have kind of two primary platforms. One is the content management platform, I'll just call it that for lack of a better word. And the other is Consensus, that has our demo content. So what we've done more recently is served up the links to the industry, kind of curated industry content in demo and in the Consensus platform, serving that up directly in the content management platform. This may not make sense without seeing it, but creating this user experience that is actually elegant and positive for our audience, which is our sellers. Identifying those evangelists that can speak for you on your behalf because they get it. There's always a bell curve. There's people that are just blown away by the value, the potential, they get excited. And then there's typically a lagger crew. And then there's that big hump in the middle of folks that are like, yeah, no, I want to get into it, but I just, I haven't had the time, or I'm not as familiar. So identifying those evangelists can help spread that message in a real organic way. And then having smaller groups. So we did that big bang launch back in July. And then we partnered with our digital sales coaches, and we've started constructing these smaller office hours and really keeping them more in line with what you might see at a university. So having the office hours constructed in a way that's like, hey, I'm just going to be sitting around here for this period of time on this date. Come in, ask your question, roll out, not a problem. And what we're finding, by not having a big presentation and structured takeaways, people are actually really comfortable. And we're having terrific conversations, and we're creating new connections internally, and we're discovering new evangelists. So those are some hot tips there. And finally, kind of closing out to the future, the vision of the future. And I've touched on a couple of these already, but really understanding what your existing technical landscape is. So I've already acknowledged that our selling community uses an array of tools. The fact that I'm focusing on two primary ones is in no way indicative of the number of tools they're actually navigating. But that technical landscape discussion is something that we should have partnered more closely with our counterparts on the content management side around tagging, naming conventions, and really creating a very positive user experience. And we are actually moving toward a new CRM platform this year. At Salesforce is the platform that we've invested in, which is yet another consensus customer. So it's just a great mind meld around here. But the technical landscape awareness is a really fundamental component that, in hindsight, I wish I had elevated. I wish I knew. I didn't know what I didn't know, but there's a lot of value in being able to capture clicks, understanding what the sales community is accessing at various points in the sales stages, so that when we do get to the point of AI and machine learning, those suggestions can be presented to the selling community based on those historic insights captured from clicks. But if you don't capture the clicks correctly, you're not going to have that detail. So that's an area of vision festing over here. Operational insights, I touched on that a moment ago about the fact that we've got these awesome sales leaders and sales teams. I feel strongly that we need to level up our analytics, and we are partnering with our sales operations teams. And I think we have a meeting a little later today to really talk through some of the dashboards. And I mean, my desire would be to have a self-service kind of environment that would allow any sales leader to have a snapshot of what their current state is, who their teams are that are using the platforms effectively, and so on. And then finally, in that vision fest is this concept of valuing these digital artifacts. And I mentioned previously, like, if we could get to a place where we can understand mindful content creation. So creating one artifact that has multiple uses. So here's another one of those trippy eye things. So when you look at this, it could be a profile of a man's head, or it could be a couple in a well-lit doorway with a dog laying on the ground. So these are those mindsets that allow you to shift throughout your experience here. This is just a vision. Again, this is forward thinking. This is an idea. If you don't dream it, it never happens. And so my dream is that we would have an elegant snapshot that would be able to showcase for any level within our organization. They should be able to understand how they're doing with their digital demo experience journeys, where they have some areas of opportunity where they can focus more deeply. We should be able to serve up their statistics. We should help guide them in terms of recognizing when things aren't looking the way they should, like they're not getting the engagement, or their delivery could be improved in their personal videos, things of that nature. So, again, vision of the future, enhancing that quality assessment too. I mentioned we did the level 0, but now we really want to level up the way we assess the quality of our content to include the engagement statistics, and really think through that digital bill of material. Do you have a nice comprehensive industry message? Do you have a sizzle reel? Do you have kind of a little progression of content that can be delivered? And we're definitely, personally, I'm stiff arming the whole concept of some of the requests that I've gotten, which was, I need to know for this video exactly when I should use it in the sales cycle. And I do not want to be that prescriptive, because you can use this content with such frequency, given your relationship, given all these variables, that I want to have a more intuitive collection or approach to how we're delivering content. But at a minimum, we need to partner with our sales teams and develop these digital bill of materials that everyone understands what's available and how to use it. This is my big vision, our big vision. And that is that From a circular perspective, the experience of a client, it does not end when the deal is signed. So we're going to continue to engage with our clients at the starting point through an RFP, perhaps, then earn the right to do business with them, get their requirements, do demonstrations for them, give them a digital leave behind. They love us. They're going to buy us, or they're going to expand their footprint. Our engagement should continue through our customer success teams. So that's another adjacent team that has started really digging into demo, like the consensus platform and our demo libraries. And then beyond that, product management, it becomes this nice cycle. So as we continue to evolve the solution capabilities, we should be continuing to engage with our clients to compel them to either take advantage of these new functions or to level up their existing footprint if needed. So really just want to keep this whole cycle rolling. That's the vision, which is leveraging this powerful platform in a multitude of manners to serve our clients, both internal and external. So partner with your tech teams, track the performance and give it back to your sales leaders and help them really understand where they could consider making changes. Like that example of the sales leader that we have several of them actually now, who digitally deflect, like they have mandated to their internal teams, like, you are not getting a solution consulting resource unless you can show me that you've sent a demo board and they've engaged. And then we're just going to continue innovating. That is what we're going to do. So just a quick recap of our journey. I shared the then, how we got to where we are through our investment and our content creation strategies and our launch, to our now, which is, yep, we're assessing, we're expanding into partners and client, customer success and other communities that are reaching out. We're continuing to adjust and fine tune. And then we look forward to a really strong vision of having an elegant technical landscape, clear operational insights that are served up self-service optimally, maybe someday, and really thinking through the value of these digital artifacts when we're rated on bookings. How do we incorporate the importance of digital? So you guys will get this deck with all of these hot tips, and certainly these hot tips were through the lens of our experience, so yours might adjust a little bit, but hopefully that gave you some food for thought and you have some brain play that you can enjoy either in the short term or in the longer term. And hopefully you guys got some really new ways of thinking to elevate and accelerate your adoption as well. So those were our main topics to cover.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sheila. We actually have a couple of questions here. One person said that they love the concept of this, of the digital sales coach. And do you have a job description of what that person looks like, or something that you could share?
Yeah, and you know what? So I can share what the digital sales coach job description is, but what I would encourage is thinking through what your organization really needs. And so I love our digital sales coaches, but what we're seeing is we need a digital strategist. That is a role concept, currently concept, and that would be someone who partners more closely with the sales teams. So our digital sales coaches, just to be crystal, they are not intended to train on how to use the platform. They're really specific about that. Their high level charter is just to help people understand how to use the tools, where I think where we as consensus community members have an opportunity here is this concept of a digital strategist, someone who can guide the team on what the most effective demo board or demos should be, how to really dig into the engagement that they're seeing for a given pursuit and some suggested actions, and also to perform that editing, for the digital leave behind. we are asking a lot of our SCs. It's like, create new content, go present live. Oh, by the way, edit this down, give it back. It's like, and dig into your analytics. So I just think there may be an opportunity to really recognize different people's gifts, people that are really into the analytics.
Awesome. Love it. We actually had a question coming from Alan during that question where, one of the big things that salespeople fear is change. They've got their set processes. They think that they close best, X or Y way. Can you share maybe one insight of how you get sales adoption going early in the journey?
So a couple things. One was kind of a pilot concept where, again, you identify those evangelists. Like we have this guy, he's so awesome, Gordon Hamilton. It's just a great name, great guy. He's one of our channel manager alliance guys. And he has been super proactive in sending those boards out and then sharing back what his successes are. Another one is one of our premier sales leaders. I got him to just do a 1-minute informal video that says, why do you dig this platform and what has it done for you? So using those voices from their community to amplify the messaging, I think is a real good one. That's definitely been a game changer. And the third would be, we're going to take advantage of consensus. We're going to have some new voices infused into our normal talk track by partnering with our teammates, with consensus and having them join some of our sessions, because I think sometimes fresh voices can lend to fresh perspectives.
Excellent. Love it. I think those are great strategies. I think we have time for one more here. And this one comes from Sarah, and she asks, Sheila, how do you respond to sales account owners fearing these recorded demos will steal their thunder from upcoming live demos, and how do you recommend responding?
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. I would want to learn more. I'm always wearing the curiosity pants. So I'd love to really understand with more clarity what their fear is. So I heard there could be some thunder stealing, when if I flip that mindset just slightly, it's really, it's our whole purpose is for the client. And so having the opportunity to really understand what's most important to them ends up being a win-win for all of us, because then we're speaking in their language, we're spending time focusing on items that are most important to them. So one strategy that has worked really well is I have some screenshots of, it's the dots. I don't know what the correct professional terminology is when you're looking at the Demolytics, and you can see who's watched what. So you have the different colored dots that emphasize what people watch. And the screenshot that I use that works really well is you identify a collection of stakeholders that have watched content, and it's really clear that there is one chapter that every single person who's watched it said it was very important. And right next door, there's something that no one's looking at. That is, it sort of speaks volumes without having to speak at all. Because you're like, oh my gosh, this is data-driven discovery, and we didn't even have to spend time on a calendar. So it's almost coming up with a whole collection of messages or stories that you can share with your internal communities that are going to land for your inside sales audience, for your field sales audience, for your solution consulting audience. And just like when we're demoing out there, just have them at the ready.
I love it. Great stuff. Really flips everything, like you're saying, on its head. And I love the approach from the buyer's perspective and playing into that buyer enablement mindset. Thank you all for attending this. Thank you again, Sheila, for joining us here. A lot of great things, and a lot of great things that are actually playing into our next webinar topic. I posted that link here in the chat if you guys want to register for that ahead of time. Is taking that to the next step, which is going to be inserting those that pre-sales content into your sequences and other BDR type outreach, or even your sales outreach in your accelerated tools, like Sheila said they're doing here at Infor. Again, thank you all for joining, and we wish you a happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks.
Yay! Thank you.